Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, recently we've talked about a lot of things, in regards to fighters and having to kind of chase down ships, especially if you're a pirate, to kind of disable them, to trap them in a certain location. And we've talked about, that can be a bit of an iffy proposition. We certainly looked at the Hurricane as a vehicle for that, and there are some interesting possibilities there, I'll say that. One of those ships that is going to be in 3.2, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who are, very much, excited to see that ship and to see what it can really do, and to maybe kind of prove their own beliefs in regards to that ship, or to prove that it isn't a good ship in the end. It's certainly a niche ship. It's going to be interesting to see where it slots in with all the other ships, especially if a pilot can indeed control the turret guns and the nose guns all at once. It could be quite the force to be reckoned with. But heading in towards the end of the summer, of course, one of the more hotly anticipated ships is coming out, and that is, of course, the Aegis Hammerhead. Now, the Hammerhead obviously represents a pretty hefty customer in terms of actual combat-oriented vessels within the Star Citizen universe. There are a lot of ships out there that have kind of other professions in mind, whether it be mining, salvage, exploration, cargo hauling, all types of professions. But when you really break it down, beyond the fighters and beyond the ships at the end of the scale, like the Polaris, the Javelin, and the Idris, the Hammerhead kind of represents that middle ground of a strictly combat-focused vessel, and it is kind of unique within that field. Now, recently, of course, I've been doing a lot of bounty missions, finally exploring that facet of the game and enjoying it. But with the Hammerhead now on the not too distant horizon, it's kind of got me thinking a little bit as to how far you could take things with a ship like that, with that type of platform within this format of missions. Because obviously, if you bring a Hammerhead to somewhere where there's a 310 UEC bounty on an Aurora LN, or anything really, a Buccaneer, a friggin' Avenger, it's gonna shred through that guy pretty darn quick. In fact, let's be honest. Barring the introduction of the Polaris, the Idris, and the Javelin, the Hammerhead is probably more than likely going to be kind of king daddy of the Star Citizen universe for a little while to come. So what I would like to do is I would like to ask a question. Is there within that field of ships, say from the Connie up to the Hammerhead size group of ships, is there a counter to the Hammerhead? Is there sort of like the Hammerhead's evil twin, an arch nemesis, if you will, for the Hammerhead? Now, certainly one of the weaknesses that was pointed out about the ship is it's vulnerable to torpedoes. Torpedoes are a bit of a problem for that ship, and so player versus player, I think, is kind of its own arena. But when you look at NPCs, what does the Hammerhead really have to worry about right now? Pirate Caterpillar, Pirate Connie, Pirate Cutlass, Pirate Aurora LN. None of those really seem to be that much of a threat to something like the Hammerhead. Let's be honest. One of the things that I would definitely like to see in game with the introduction of the Hammerhead is NPC pirate Hammerheads in the universe. Once we get to that point, I would like to see a little bit more variety in the bounty missions. And certainly if, let's say, you're getting 310 UEC for an Aurora, then I'd like to see maybe like a couple of thousand UEC at least for something like a Pirate Hammerhead. And I kind of want them to be a little bit tougher than player flown Hammerheads as well. I know some people will be like, oh my god, no, you can't have that in the hands of like the Nine Tails or the Nova Riders, or maybe you just want to steal it so you can fly a better Hammerhead than we're gonna get. It's nothing like that, but I think certainly from a Hammerhead pilot's point of view is you probably, once you have this ship in the game, and obviously at a stage in the game where losing the ship isn't really going to be the end of the world, I think there's probably a lot of Hammerhead owners out there who would like to cut their teeth on difficult opponents, like really difficult opponents, to really figure that ship out and really kind of work out all the quirks and possibly the weaknesses and develop tactics to develop that ship to its fullest potential. One of the worst things I think that you see in video games is the idea of pushover enemies, and that so many of the games that we play do end up kind of having these pushover enemies that I think, even though it kind of gives you that level of satisfaction where you're gunning things down and blowing things up and you're like, yeah, that's awesome, but I think that when it's too easy, it makes you lazy, and it doesn't really allow you to develop as a player. A while ago, I talked about an idea where I was talking about sort of like these dynamic CIG developer-driven events where, let's say, a system like where we are right now here in Crusader, what would happen if an event all of a sudden popped up where all of a sudden the Vanduul are making a push within the wider Stanton system? And so maybe it's a chance to squeeze in a few of the Vanduul ships from Squadron 42, let players kind of get used to them, show them kind of a dynamic universe and not so much one that's static, where there could be events where, let's say, a group of Vanduul Void Bombers with their torpedoes attack the system and they're marauding around destroying things, and it's up to pilots and ships up there like the Hammerhead to go around and destroy them. These are kind of special missions that pop up from time to time. Just something that really gives the Hammerhead something really cool to do with the ship and gives the pilots a chance to kind of explore what the ship can do and to really start to build some solid ideas on how to bring the ship into combat and how to outfit it, and what stations do you really want to have manned, what stations do you really need to have manned, and how to operate the vessel in an optimal way. Obviously, player versus player is going to offer some of this, but realistically, I mean, when people talk about player versus player and someone says, well, I'm going to use a Hammerhead, and well, if you use a Hammerhead, I'm going to bring my Retaliator and I'm just going to torpedo you to death, and yada, yada, yada. And, whenever people kind of have those conversations, it's always kind of funny because it's like, okay, so can you show me in the game interface where the spawn Retaliator right this moment and right at this place button is? Because I don't know where that button is. I've never found it. By the time you go, you get your Retaliator, you load it up, you make sure everything's the way you want it, and you go, take off, go to the location. Certainly with the distances that we're talking about in this game, it becomes less of a practical thing, and it becomes more of like an unrealistic game of rock, paper, scissors. But I feel that with the introduction of something like the Hammerhead, I think it would be a good idea to have an event where maybe something got pinched from Squadron 42, like the Void Bomber, and it was brought in to give the Hammerhead something to really cut its teeth on, something to really wring out the best possible performance out of that ship, some real practical, dependable combat experience that players could get out of that ship beyond, say, shooting down pirate caterpillars and constellations and cutlasses, something really worthy of that ship. Because it's one thing for me to say it, like, oh, they should just do this, and it's another thing for them to actually make it and implement it in game. But if this was within the realm of possibility, if this wasn't something that would take, you know, months to kind of work out, or maybe even longer than that, this is something that I definitely think I would like to see as, you know, kind of coming along with the Hammerhead, is kind of taking the combat within the system, at least the PvE combat, to the next level and bringing in something that would be considered a worthy opponent of the Hammerhead. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. That's just something that I was thinking about when I was thinking about the Hammerhead recently. I was like, man, they really need to put in something to really fight, you know, fight with the Hammerhead beyond what's currently kind of floating around in the system right now. But I guess we have to wait and see what CIG has planned. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.